A single father in a worn jacket sat in a law office that smelled of mahogany and old money. Before him lay a marriage contract with impossible terms. Marry a young woman who couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't acknowledge the world. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also, tell us in the comments where in the world are you watching from. In exchange enough money to save his son's life, he picked up the pen, hand trembling as he signed. He had no idea that signature would lead him somewhere no contract could predict. Daniel Reed had been a mechanic for 15 years, building a quiet life with callous hands and honest work. He'd married young to Sarah, a woman who laughed easily and loved fiercely. They had a son named Eli, born with his mother's bright eyes and his father's determination. For several years, life had been unremarkable in the best way. Then Sarah collapsed while folding laundry. A brain hemorrhage, sudden and merciless. She was gone before the ambulance arrived. Daniel became a single father overnight. He worked double shifts to keep their apartment. He learned to braid hair from videos at 3 in the morning. He became both parents, the one who checked for monsters and paid overdue bills. Eli grew quieter after losing his mother, but never stopped trusting his father. 6 months ago, Eli started getting tired too easily. A checkup revealed a congenital heart defect. Without surgery, Eli wouldn't see his 10th birthday. With surgery, he had a real chance. But the procedure was expensive, experimental, not covered by insurance. Daniel sold everything. He took out loans he'd never repay. It still wasn't enough. Then a lawyer found him. A man in an expensive suit appeared at the garage one evening. He represented the Harrington family, one of the wealthiest dynasties in the state. Their daughter had been in an accident. She was alive, but unresponsive, paralyzed, requiring constant care. They needed someone to fulfill a specific role. A husband, at least on paper. The lawyer didn't explain why they'd chosen Daniel. He simply named a figure that would cover Eli's surgery and years of medical care. Daniel asked for one night to think. He spent it watching his son sleep, listening to the faint irregularity in his breathing. By morning, he knew there was only one choice. A week later, he brought Eli to the Harrington estate. The mansion sat behind iron gates, a monument to wealth that felt more like a museum than a home. Eli pressed his face against the car window, eyes wide. Daniel gripped the steering wheel and wondered what world he was bringing his son into. But when he looked at Eli's face, still pale but filled with wonder, he knew he'd signed that contract 1,000 times over. The estate was vast and cold, all marble floors and echoing hallways. Daniel and Eli were shown to a guest wing. 2 rooms with expensive, uncomfortable furniture. No family photos, no signs of life. Just oil paintings and vases worth more than Daniel's car. A nurse named Miss Brennan met them. The scent of mahogany and old money was thick in the law office, a world away from the familiar grease and gasoline of Daniel Reed's life. A single father in a worn jacket, his calloused hands, testament to 15 years as a mechanic, rested on a cold, polished table. Before him lay a marriage contract with terms that felt less like a legal document and more like a Faustian bargain. He was to marry Evelyn Harrington, a young woman he had never met, who couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't acknowledge the world. In return, he would receive enough money to save his son's life. The pen felt alien in his trembling hand, an instrument of salvation and surrender. As he scratched his name onto the dotted line, he had no idea that signature would lead him somewhere no contract could predict, into a gilded cage with secrets whispering from the shadows. Daniel had built a quiet life with honest work, marrying young to Sarah, a woman whose laughter was infectious and whose love was a fortress. Their son Eli was their greatest joy, a boy with his mother's bright eyes and his father's quiet determination. Life was beautifully unremarkable until the day Sarah collapsed while folding laundry, a sudden and merciless brain hemorrhage stealing her away before the ambulance could even arrive. Overnight, Daniel became a single father, his world reduced to the dual burdens of profound grief and relentless responsibility. He worked double shifts to keep their modest apartment, his hands growing ever more rough and tired. He learned to braid hair from bleary-eyed tutorials at 3 a.m., becoming both the parent who chased away monsters under the bed and the one who negotiated with debt collectors on the phone. Eli grew quieter after losing his mother. A piece of his childhood light dimmed, but his trust in his father never wavered. A faith that now weighed on Daniel heavier than any engine block. That weight became a crushing reality 6 months ago when Eli began tiring too easily, his breath coming in short, concerning gasps. The diagnosis was a congenital heart defect, a hidden flaw in the beautiful boy's construction. The doctors were clear. Without a complex experimental surgery, Eli wouldn't see his 10th birthday. With it, he had a real chance. But the price tag was a number so large it felt fictional, and insurance deemed it an uncovered risk. Daniel sold everything of value. He took out loans with predatory interest rates, knowing he'd never repay them. He begged and borrowed until his pride was as stripped as his bank account. And it still wasn't enough. Hope was a dying ember until the lawyer found him. The man in the impossibly expensive suit appeared at the garage one evening, an apparition amidst the oil stains. He represented the Harrington family, a dynasty whose name was synonymous with old wealth and power. Their daughter, Evelyn, had been in a catastrophic accident. She was alive but utterly unresponsive, paralyzed, existing in a state of constant, expensive care. They needed someone to fulfill a role, a husband in name only, a legal companion to their silent daughter. The lawyer offered no reason why Daniel, a struggling mechanic, was chosen. He simply named a figure that would cover Eli's surgery and all future medical needs, a sum that dissolved Daniel's desperation into a cold, hard decision. He asked for one night, which he spent watching his son sleep, listening to the faint, irregular rhythm of Eli's struggling heart. By the pale morning light, he knew there was only one choice he could ever make. A week later, he brought Eli to the Harrington estate. The mansion loomed behind ornate iron gates, a monument to wealth that felt less like a home and more like a museum. Cold and impersonal, Eli, ever resilient, pressed his face against the car window, his eyes wide with a wonder that broke Daniel's heart. Gripping the steering wheel, Daniel wondered what strange, sterile world he was delivering his son into. But one glance at Eli's face, still too pale but alight with curiosity, confirmed he would sign that contract 1,000 times over. The interior of the estate was vast and echoingly cold, all marble floors that clicked under their cheap shoes and hallways that seemed to swallow sound. They were shown to a guest wing, 2 rooms adorned with expensive, uncomfortable furniture. There were no family photos, no scattered toys, no signs of lived-in love, only austere oil paintings and vases that likely cost more than Daniel's entire car. It was there they were met by Miss Brennan, a nurse with a kind face but eyes that held a deep, unsettling sorrow. She explained the routines of Evelyn's care in a soft, practiced tone. She then led Daniel to a sun-drenched room where Evelyn lay, a still, beautiful figure in a medical bed, surrounded by silent monitors and the gentle hum of machinery. "You should talk to her," Miss Brennan said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "The doctors say she can't hear, but I talk to her anyway. It feels wrong not to." Alone with his legally wed wife, Daniel stood awkwardly, the silence pressing in. He cleared his throat, feeling foolish. "Hello, Evelyn." "I'm Daniel. I don't know why I'm here or why you're here like this, but I made a promise. My son, Eli, he's sick." The words, once started, spilled out in a hushed, desperate confession. He spoke of Sarah, of Eli's laughter, of the garage, of his fear. He spoke until his voice grew hoarse, pouring out all the grief and hope he'd bottled up for months into the ears of a woman who gave no sign of hearing him. Days settled into a strange routine. Eli, full of youthful adaptability, began exploring the vast gardens under the watchful eye of staff, his color slowly improving as the medical preparations began. Daniel would spend part of each day in Evelyn's room, initially out of a grim sense of duty, then out of a growing need for the bizarre solace he found there. He told her about his progress fixing a classic car in the estate's garage, about Eli's latest drawings, about the way the light caught the dust motes in her room. One afternoon, as he was recounting a silly joke Eli had told him, he noticed something. A single tear, glistening and perfect, traced a path from the corner of Evelyn's eye down her temple and into her hairline. His breath caught. He stared, his heart hammering against his ribs. He called her name gently, then again. There was no other movement, no flicker of an eyelid. But the tear was undeniable. Later he found Miss Brennan in the hallway. He mentioned the tear, his voice tight with a confusion he couldn't name. The nurse's kind eyes filled with a profound aching empathy. "Oh, Mr. Reed," she sighed, the words heavy with a secret long held. "She's in there. The scans. The family knows. They've known. She's aware of everything. Locked in, they call it. Her mind is perfectly intact. She hears every word, feels every sensation, but she has no way to reach out. The accident only trapped her. It didn't take her. The family, they wanted a companion for her. Someone who would just talk to her. Someone real who wasn't paid staff. Someone who wouldn't look at her as a tragedy, but as a person. They searched for someone with enough kindness and enough need to agree without pity. They chose you." Daniel felt the world tilt. The impossible terms of the contract, the gilded cage, the silent woman in the sunroom. It all rearranged itself into a terrifying, heartbreaking new reality. He hadn't just sold his name for money. He had been hired in the most cruel and beautiful way to be a lifeline. He was not merely a husband on paper. He was Evelyn Harrington's only window to the world, and she had been listening to him all along. The contract had promised money to save a life, but it had inadvertently given him a profound responsibility to another, soul clinging to life in a different way. Walking back to Evelyn's room, his steps felt different on the cold marble. He pulled a chair close to her bedside, reaching out slowly, his mechanic's hand, once trembling as it signed a contract, now steady as it gently enclosed her limp, cool fingers. He leaned close, his voice a soft, sure promise in the quiet room. "Evelyn," he said, "I'm here. I'm listening too." The journey he had predicted, one of simple sacrifice for his son, had vanished. In its place was a far more complicated path, a merging of two desperate salvations, his son's beating heart and a silenced woman's conscious mind, where the true terms were only just beginning to reveal themselves, written not in ink, but in a single shared tear. Thank you for immersing yourself in this story of sacrifice and hidden connections. If this tale of unexpected kindness resonated with you, please support our channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing to Kindness True Stories. For more narratives that explore the profound depth of the human heart.